Authors seem to have a goal of being published by a major publishing house. Why do you think that is? People don't walk into a bookstore and say, I'll have a HarperCollins, please.
While that's true, there is some sense behind that, at least from my point of view, because I believe that the larger publishing houses have a lot more clout with the bookstores, a lot more clout even with Amazon. They have money and the ability to do promotional work that smaller companies simply can't do. So there is some sense, to trying to get to a major publishing house, because they will put, if they love your book, they'll put money behind your book, and that's worth its weight in gold or in books. It really does matter.
Can you share with us a bit about your journey from, gee, I have this concept, to a published author with a publishing house? How did you come to find yourself offered a contract?
Well, I wanted to write my entire life. So I did go to graduate school in writing. I went to the Iowa Writers Workshop, which, you know, certainly helped me when it came to finding an agent. But what I did first was I published a lot of short stories. So in those days, it was easier to publish short stories than it is now. But, even if you don't have short stories, maybe you publish pieces in magazines, maybe you do essays, whatever it is you do, in newspapers or anything that you've done that you can put on your resume is going to help an agent, decide that you're worth paying attention to. Now, you asked me about agents, and I do believe it is absolutely critical for a fiction writer to have an agent. That's my point of view. That's my experience. But an agent will get you through the door to the right editor, the right publishing house, the right place for you. And the difference between a good agent and a bad agent is legion. It's huge. So I highly recommend that if somebody has a work of fiction, it's different with nonfiction. But if you have a work of fiction you want to sell, try to, get enough on your resume that you're going to interest an agent. And I can tell you how I think people should be looking for an agent.
I'd love to hear.
Okay, so I would say the first thing you should do when you're looking for an agent is to figure out what writers are out there that are kind of like you. Maybe you're really, really unique, but surely there's somebody who's somewhat like you, who writes like you do, or is interested in the same sort of topics you are, would have the same target audience that you do. Find out who those writers' agents are, and it's really not that hard. You can call the publishing company and say, you're thinking of writing an article about this person and you really need to know the name of their agent, and they will give it to you, And so I would do that with 5 people at a time and start writing those letters. When you write a query letter, make it short, snappy, and sweet. Get yourself up front. Don't talk about your book, because they don't until you say who you are. Now, if you say, I have published many articles in whatever, they are going to pay more attention to you. So try and create some kind of foundation for who you are. And then tell them very shortly what the book is about. Never send an entire manuscript to an agent who hasn't agreed to see it. Your query letter means you're asking, are you willing to see this book? I would love to share it with you. Make your letter have plenty of personality, because they see zillions of these and they're going to be bored by a, hi, I have a book, is just not going to work, So that's what I'd recommend, is write a really undeniably entertaining, charming letter that talks about who you are, what you have, and get out quick. Do not spend a lot of time. If it's more than 1 page, you've done something wrong.
Oh, such good advice. Authors are passionate about their baby. and they usually have more than one. Sometimes they just have one if it's not a prolificness within them. An author usually finds it difficult to believe that their book would be rejected. And I know that many times in our minds as authors, we feel that once a book has been created, that there's just an automatic audience for that book, and that it's automatically going to sell, and that it will sort of just go out into the ether, and it will find its reader. What are your thoughts on that?
Do you really know people who believe that? I don't know anyone who's ever believed that. It is a tough world out there. I mean, I think every writer who knows anything about the publishing world knows it's going to be hard. They're going to have a shell like a turtle all around them. And, you know, they're just going to have to be prepared to face the worst and just believe in themselves enough to keep sending it out. I mean, you know, in the old days, we were told only send it to one agent at a time. It was excruciating. Now, by the time actually I was looking for my second agent, I got a first agent right out of college, and she never sold the book I had written. And so I was looking for another agent. I sent it to 5 agents. At that time, it was allowed to be sent to 5 agents. And those were the days of snail mail, you know. And 2 of them were interested, and I ended up with an agent who I had for 27 years. But now I've just recently switched agents, and I absolutely adore my new agent. So I'm really glad that I switched. But I can't believe that anybody thinks it's easy. It's never easy.
Do you feel authors should definitely immediately go get an agent? And if so, what should they expect financially, and how long should they expect to invest?
Well, financially, you know, a good agent will never ask you for money, ever, ever. You don't want an agent you're going to pay to sell your book. That's just vanity press. That's not an agent. A good agent will take a percentage of the sales. And these days it tends to be about 20%, but you do not pay an agent. If somebody wants you to pay them to sell your book, run in the other direction, because they will not be somebody who a publisher will respect either. Trust me.
You know, there's the story of the wonderful movie, The Martian, and how that gentleman that crafted that script, or manuscript, I should say first, he did get rejected by something like a number of publishers in the numbers of 30-ish, something in there. And then he went ahead and he self-published, and he was fortunate enough to sell the option of the book and sell the rights, and it became a movie. That, of course, is a unique situation. I think when people submit to publishing houses, they're shocked, they're rejected. Would you agree that publishing houses have different personalities and different focuses? So if I'm Jane and I'm sending my manuscript to 30 publishing houses, would you agree that might not be the best approach?
Let me just say that it's not the publishing house that has a personality, it's the editors. So that's where an agent comes into play, because the agent understands which editors are interested in your type of manuscript. You will never know that. And, you know, it's not, now I don't know that much about small publishing houses, but in general, you know, certainly the bigger publishing houses, they have, you know, 30, 50 editors, and an agent will know who's looking for what, and they have relationships with these people. So you betcha they all have different personalities, but it's, if you send to a slush pile at a publisher and you're just hoping somebody will find your book, it is kind of like dropping your penny down the well, frankly. I would not recommend that to anybody.
So well stated, and beautifully put. What do you think in today's I would have asked this question differently of you prior to the pandemic. So now that we're in the days of the COVID and the changes that are going to be in effect for years to come that we probably don't understand yet, what do you feel publishing companies are looking for these days when they're looking for an author that they're going to offer a contract to?
Well, I think more than ever, they're looking for somebody who can create an entire world in a book so that there's, you know, a place for a reader to escape to and an undeniability about the quality of the book. It has to be written well. It has to have a great story. It has to have characters that you want to know. And I'm talking about fiction. Obviously, nonfiction's very different, and that's all about topic. But when it comes to fiction, there's absolutely no question that, your book has to create a world that sucks people in, that they just can't help but read it. These are tough times, and people want to escape more than ever.
And you have to be able to provide that. You just made me think of a question I want to add to the mix here, but before I do, what do you think authors need to know about the current publishing environment?
It's really hard for me to say because I don't know how long it will last. I mean, there's no question that I think you can't say there's no question and then I think. There's no question that they're being more careful than ever
Right.
because, like I said, these are hard times. But at the same time, they are selling a lot of books. They're just selling a lot of books that by authors who are already well known. And the harder part is to get out names that are not well known. So they're doing the best that they can. And they also know this is temporary. They know things will change. So I wouldn't really worry about that so much right now. I'd worry about writing. And I say this to everybody who asks me about writing and publishing. Worry about writing the very best book you can. Because, when you get out in the world with a book, no matter how fabulous it is, somebody's not going to like it. Maybe a lot of people won't like it. But if you wrote the best book you are capable of, that's like a shield against the world. And you can say, look, I'm sorry you don't like it. I did the best book I could. And that's really, really key. So worry more about that than getting it published. Worry about the journey of the writing rather than the destination at the station. You'll get to that part when you're ready to publish, but I wouldn't worry about, what the publishing environment is right now. I'd worry about having a book so good that people are climbing over each other to get it.
So, perfect segue, madam. Authors are reticent to have editors touch their baby.
I don't understand that because, frankly, a good editor is your best friend. An editor who actually wants to be hands-on is a brilliant addition to your coterie of getting yourself out there in good shape. They know more than you do about what needs to be done to a book to make it saleable. You've done your best job, but a good editor can make it better. I have the most brilliant editor right now. I'm so lucky. My editor was the editor of Where the Crawdads Sing, and she just has given me like fabulous thoughts and ideas for my book, and she made it better. And I just adored working with her. A good writer is not afraid to change anything in their book that's going to make it better. Being a collaborative person, is part of it's part of the process. It's not nearly as bad as Hollywood, where they literally change everything and don't tell you they're going to change it.
Absolutely.
Somebody who's working with you so that you have the best product possible. And if you're a wise person, you will find a good editor and listen to them.
Wow. Thank you. Fantastic.
I bet they need to hear that, right?
I won't edit that out.
Hmm.
I
Well,
definitely.
I figured you could edit some of this.
Oh, and you'll get to hear it for approval, by the way.
Okay.
Downloads. I was approached by an author recently who had been in touch with a publishing house trying to win them over for a contract. And the publishing house came back and said, unless you have already can prove to me you've had 10,000 downloads, we are not interested in continuing the conversation. Have you heard anything like that?
Never. I don't know anything about that. It's just not my world, I'm afraid.
What do you think publishers they have a set budget each sales cycle, every release cycle? It
Right.
could be the winter cycle or the spring getting ready for summer reading, or it could be the fall getting ready for holiday. There's those sales cycles and those release cycles. And every publisher has so many titles in that cycle and so many titles in this cycle. And if I'm a weight loss book or a budget book, of course, you're going to be in that winter cycle that it's on the shelves by January 1, even if not before. When you're looking at publishing companies and you realize you need to fit into a sales cycle and you need to fit into one of those slots, and then that publishing company that's getting ready to sign you has Oprah and Stephen King and Martha Stewart, and what kind of budget or energy or marketing plan or PR is left for a new coming author in that landscape?
It really depends on the clout of your editor, on the love for your book within the house. If they absolutely love your book, they're going to put a big budget behind your book and you're going to be fine. It really won't matter. You know, you're always up against Stephen King and Oprah. Let's face it, you are. You know, whoever's going to come out in November, right around the time that Barack Obama's book's going to come out, that's just part of it. Maybe that'll draw somebody into the bookstore to buy your book. So I wouldn't worry about that. Your editor's in charge of figuring out the best possible pub date for you.
Well stated. What can a new author expect in regards to advances and royalties these days? It's different. It's changed.
It's hard to know. It's been a long time since I've been a new author. But I know that, you know, it really depends on the house. It depends on whether they have the budget to pay you well. And remember, and I want to stress this, remember, the less you take in advance, the faster you're going to get a royalty. So if you don't take a big advance and your book does very well, you're going to feel just terrific about that. You know, I'll tell you something. My friend Ann Patchett will not take an advance ever.
Smart.
She'd much rather get the royalties. So
Smart.
it's something that, you know, if you look at it the right way, you'll realize it doesn't matter that much. Now, if you're desperate for cash, you might feel differently. I mean, they still pay good advances if they're really excited about a book.
That's fantastic. Do you think new authors really have a shot these days, especially in the days of COVID when everyone's leaning toward comfort food, comfort titles, comfort everything? Are they looking for new? Are they really out there looking for new?
I think if they see a manuscript that thrills them, they're going to buy it. Of
Yeah.
course they're looking for new. Of course they want to find the next wonderful author. And I would imagine if you look at the list, you'll see tons of new authors out there, you know, and they want to hear new voices, maybe younger voices, maybe older, wise voices. It doesn't matter. If your book is great, they're going to buy it.
If you're in a publishing environment, obviously, if you come to the table to a publisher with zero tribe, zero followers, zero blogs, zero podcasts, if you come in at ground zero, how do they view that, and what is their approach to that kind of an author?
I don't know that I'm the right person to ask that question to, because I'm very established at this point, so I really don't know. You know, people have told me, oh, and, you know, publisher told me I have to have this and that and this. My experience is, and of the few people I know who are breaking in now, their experience is that a good publisher will help you find the right person to build your website. A good publisher will tell you how to establish your Instagram account. A good publisher will have their social media person talk to you about hashtags. You know, those are things that a good publisher will do if they love your book. If it's a crappy publisher who just wants to see if they can make money off of you and isn't really so concerned, and maybe you're even paying them, that's a different story. Okay, but I would not think for a great manuscript it matters. They will set you up. They do want you to have all those things, but a good publisher won't expect them up front. I don't, but maybe I'm speaking out of turn because I'm not that person and I don't know.
Do you think that, I know a lot of authors feel that if they get signed by a publishing house, the publishing house takes care of all of that for them. They build the website, they handle all their social media, they handle everything. Oh, would you?
The publishing house will never build the website for you. You're going to pay for that, so expect to. But they will set you up with 5 people that they think are great website builders, and they will encourage you and they will look at it and they will help you get the materials you need. But no, they will not pay for that. They won't. I've never seen that happen ever.
And they think that the publishing house will handle all of their social media and all of their email marketing and all their SEO. Would you agree or disagree?
No, you're going to have to do your own Instagram account. You're going to have to do your own author page on Facebook, no matter who you are, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
They do not set that up for you so much as they give you materials. So for instance, with my new book, they gave me all sorts of wonderful visual materials that I could use like a template to create different posts that had the feel of the book. And, you know, they will do that. They do have, you know, art departments that'll help you, but it's up to you to do the posts, etc.
What is 2 last questions, and then it's a free for all. I want to be sensitive to your time. If there was one thing you could say to authors that you really wish they'd hear you say, what would that be?
Your material is not set in stone, nor is it made of solid gold. You know, a good author listens, learns from those around them. That includes if you're in a writing group and they say, you know, I was not drawn into that part of the story. You need to work on that. Work on it. You know, nobody comes in just perfectly. Nobody is so brilliant that they don't need help. No matter how far along you are in your career, it just doesn't matter. So I would say a good author listens to criticism, responds to it. You are not perfect. You are human. So please use that thought when you are listening to people tell you what you can do with your book.
That's lovely. And if there's something you wish someone would have told you, or maybe they did tell you and you couldn't process it at the time, it took you a while to wrap your mind around, or you just didn't hear it. If there was something you wish someone could have told you early on, or that it could have gotten through, what might that be?
I don't think I have an answer to that one. I think
That's
that one
awesome.
really perplexes me. I don't know, because I came into writing not expecting it to be easy. You know, because I went to Iowa, we knew all about how hard it was going to be, you know, and, you know, it's very hard to get into Iowa. When I went to Iowa, 5,000 people apply and 30 people get in. So you know, they're going to tell you it's tough out there. You may think you're solid gold, you're not. And so I expected it to be very tough. And if anyone had told me anything, I guess I would have changed agents sooner. I'm
Wow.
really happy I changed agents.
That must have been hard.
It was very hard because I'd been with her so many years and she had given me a lot, but she had stopped giving me a lot. And I just didn't feel like she was the right person to sell my book, to cheer me on, to help direct me. And an agent is your best friend in a way. And I feel so lucky to have the agent I have now. I'm very, very pleased to have an association with her. She's brilliant. So
You remind me of the story of when Michael Phelps wanted to go back for the gold one last time, and it was going to be his last real hurrah. And he left his coach that he had had since he was a child. Remember that? And he took on a gold medal Olympic coach. And he
wow.
had to move and he had to change coaches. And that must have been so painful for him. But the reason why he did it is the end goal was my final Olympics. I got to beat all records and I got to have someone that can take me there. And what you did is you aligned yourself with someone that could take you there.
Right.
And it paid off.
Well, that's a really nice analogy. I like that analogy with him. It's a great story too,
Mm-hmm.
because it is sometimes hard to walk away from your
Mm-hmm.
comfort zone to something that's more challenging to get to where you need to go. And you certainly don't want to break hearts or make people unhappy. And that's just terribly difficult. Relationships are so important. At the same time, sometimes you have to make a decision that's the right decision for your career.
Yeah, and last question, and then I'll let you have any final thoughts. Thank you. One of the things that comes to my mind is uh, when you and I, well, let's just say about 10, 20 years ago, there was a real stigma against people who self-published. I mean, it was, you didn't admit it, you didn't talk about it, nobody wanted to touch you. It was a little bit like it's leprosy for an author. Those days have completely changed and people are successfully publishing. There's 3,000 titles being released a day now. There's hybrid publishers, there's independent publishers, there's self-publishers. What would you say to someone who is reticent to taking the self-publishing path and feeling maybe embarrassed or awkward or wanting to hold out for that publisher? What would your thoughts be?
I don't know a lot about self-publishing. I mean, that's just not the world that I'm in. So it's difficult for me to answer that. I think it's my opinion, and I could be desperately wrong, but that self-publishing is much more successful for people who have specific topics. If you're writing about something and somebody can look you up and find you on that topic and find your book, you're going to be successful because your topic is going to draw people in. When you're writing fiction, it's different. For me, I think to self-publish fiction is a very difficult path. I've known some people who've done it. I don't know anyone who's done it particularly successfully. So, I would not myself recommend that you self-publish fiction. But what do I know? I've never done it. I don't know anything about it. The only path I know is the more classic path of going through a publisher.
But for someone who might be a business owner that wants to express themselves as an expert in their field, or someone who just has a one topic shot in their head or heart, you would say that it would probably be a good fit for them.
I think it's a great fit for somebody like that because you can Google them, you can find them, you can reach that book. I mean, that's really in the end how you're going to sell a book is to reach your audience. If you think you can reach your audience by self-publishing because your topic is very special, very important, hard to find, all those things would make you the perfect candidate to self-publish.
I would like to end with any sage advice or words from your heart or words of wisdom to just put out there into the ether. You bring to the table such an amazing journey. It has been an honor, and I am not fluffing you. It has been an honor to have this time with you today. You're a very busy, very successful author, but you had such a gracious heart in being willing to address this topic. And I know other authors will be very grateful for your time. But if you had any sage advice sitting in your brain or heart, I would love for you to share that with us.
So, and I'm just really speaking to, any writer, honestly. It's what I said before, which is enjoy the journey of writing. Love what you're doing. Make it the best you can make it. Put heart and soul into it. Because in the end, it's really not about publishing it. It's about getting the most wonderful book possible out of who you are. If you can do that, You will have confidence in yourself. You'll have the fortitude to put up with a wall of no's, which everybody does find along the way. There will be so many people saying no. If you feel good about what you've done, you will have won no matter what.